one of the things that keep me up at night. So tonight, what kept me up tonight is me questioning myself for myself. How do I globally propagate the new man of Africa's renaissance or re-evolution or revolution or emancipation from this current states to which we Africans have found ourselves in, where we are neither looking forward or looking backward. It's almost like we're stuck in the middle. And we all know that if you check a global community, you're going to see that a few members of the global community controls the entire global north, the global wealth. And only the redistribution of global wealth can help you as an African man live in a village where you can see yourself as one member of the global community. Am I not speaking gibberish? Right, that's the struggle. So I believe that for Africans to get out of this conundrum of poverty that we are in, we need to check what the global north, one of the few member or powerhouse of the global north, the wealthy Western countries have done that we haven't done. And we realize also that even in the global superpower, very few people are currently controlling the 1% of the 1% global wealth. I think it's important for us to know that as Africans, the best thing we should be chasing right now is economic and financial freedom, independently and collectively, as a society, as a community. Because if you look at it, the only thing that keeps us where we are revolving in the same circle is the fact that our economic development have been stagnant and retrogressing for the last 100 years, 30 years, 50 years to today. Our individual progress have been tied to our economic progress or prosperity. Our collective development have been tied to our collective prosperity or collective economic development or our collective financial freedom. So we know that everyone in the world is chasing freedom to speak, freedom to live, freedom to worship a god or be in a religion, freedom to live in a society, freedom to travel, freedom to do things, freedom to establish one or two things for the sole purpose of prosperity. And for me as an African man, the one thing that is most paramount for me is the freedom to trade, freedom to establish globalized economic trade where our collective hold can have the opportunity to, grow by and large into that freedom or economic and financial freedom that we are all looking for. Because without money these days, you can't even pursue freedom. So I realized that for me to propagate my new man of African customary, natural, ecological African philosophy in the global market, I need to first of all have the financial freedom, financial capacity as an independent African man. And to do that, I have to be able to be part of a collective of African pioneers for the future that we look forward to. Because you need to understand that as we currently speak, there's a pioneering movement for the evolution of Africa for the future that we are all in expectant. Because the reason why I decide to propagate the new man of Africa or the African person is because I realize that there are no race in the world. There's just the humankind or the human race. There's no black race, white race. I don't believe in such. But I believe in the black tribe. I'm of the black tribe. I'm a person of African origin. So in my human race, I am a person of African origin. And I realize that with that in mind, there's no way that anyone anywhere will look out for me better than I should look out for myself. So as an African man, I have to look out for myself because having traveled around, I've seen that I have to look out for myself. I have to propagate this theory. I have to ensure that our fellow Africans look out for themselves. Because like it or not, in the global community that we now look forward to say, oh, now today the world is a global community. If you don't play in that global community, you cannot be a global citizen. So we need to think in that direction, right? I wake up at night and I'm thinking, what can we do? Our governments have their own cut out for them, but as independents, what can we do? I don't think Mark Zuckerberg started Facebook with the help of a government. I don't think Elon Musk started PayPal with the help of government. I don't think Jack Ma from China started Alibaba with the help of government. I don't think Jeff Bezos started Amazon with the help of government. Likewise, every other wealthy global tycoon that you know. I don't think Aliko Dangote of Nigeria started Dangote with government help. So as an independent African man, you have to think what you can do for African to be better, for Africa to be better. That is what I want to propagate. That's my message. That's what I want to see in my global society, in my global community coming from Africa. The forward-looking, forward-thinking African that I am. I want to propagate this message to say that for Africa to be better, because that's the foundation of who I am. I cannot say, oh, because I don't live in Africa today, I'm not an African man, or whatever happens to Africa, I don't care. I can take out every member of my family. I don't care. It's not true. The only way you can sustain your identity as a human being is to identify with your tribe and work as a collective, as a tribe. Wherever you are as a black person, you need to understand that. If you travel around, you're going to see that there's still poverty, a lot of people suffering in the world today, and majority of this population is in Africa. Regardless of what's happening in other parts of the world, in the Middle East, where there's war, where there's what is going on there, I still feel like if there was no human inflicted pain, especially for example in Gaza and in Israel and the rest of the world where there's really heartbreaking development there, Africa still suffer the worst conditions of human existence. We still suffer that pain out of poverty, and we must independently, individually begin to think what we can do in our comforts. What can we do? How do we put out something that will help lift people out of poverty? We cannot continue to wait for our government. They have failed us for the longest time, and we now know that it is only by the help of independent leaders who lead in different industry or various industry that we can revolutionize Africa and lift Africa out of poverty. You know how many jobs Jeff Bezos creates in America and around the world, in Philippines, in China, in India, where his factories, all of these things are. Let's look in that direction. I don't have the capacity to do anything, but my capacity is to be able to reignite this philosophy and theory of the customary value of an African man is to, live as a collective African man. When you see your brother, this is your brother. Because the poverty is too much. The poverty has shifted people's mentality, has shifted people's orientation, people's beliefs, people's ideology, people's mentality. I think this poverty thing is worse than war. that takes human lives. Poverty is worse than a plague, a virus. There's nothing worse than poverty, and there's no way the world is going to help us lift poverty out of Africa. We just have to find a way. I thought of the other day, I wanted, how do I build a system that would recycle, flowing money that floats around the, you know, digital market, where we can recycle this money, and use it to build our African communities and lift people out of poverty, because money float on digital space that some people just keep stealing it, and these people are not the Yahoo boys we talk of in Africa, because the stupidity of our people is still there. Some of them make this money and they can't build a community, they can't build industry, they can't establish on anything. What they do is buy foreign clothes and foreign cars, try to live up to the same people that, are helping us to stay poor. They want to leave that. So I just feel like the people who recycle money on the digital space are not the right people. How do I build a platform, maybe an app, where money would be recycled from there through whatever we can do. I wanted to build a community of people who think like I do. If we recycle money, how do we make this money regenerate, so we can build Africa, build something in Africa that can lead the way? Sometimes, because I am a Nigerian, I just have to think as a Nigerian, think for Nigeria. Unfortunately, when I look at Nigeria, the kind of things, atrocities, darkness, backwardness, the kind of evil perpetuated by Nigerians can only be interpreted by one thing or two things. One, ignorance. Two, poverty. Ignorance can be, by and large, caused by illiteracy. So I think, how do we get out of this conundrum as Nigerians? Because I now know, I was asking Grok the other day, do you think the West that could help Nigeria out of the conundrum is intentionally not helping? And Grok said, comparatively, the Western civilization can help Africa and Nigeria as the leading lamp for Africa, but will not do so, because then it reduces the power grip on Africa. Now I understand. It's not like I needed to ask Grok anyway. I already know that. So you see, if Nigeria can develop its capacity of, natural resources to be able to become a global trader in the rich natural commodities, natural resources, natural minerals and everything we have, 60% of its capacity can lift Nigeria out of darkness into a, I wouldn't say first world, but it will be able to lift Nigeria out of this predicament of heightened poverty or multidimensional poverty that we experience in Nigeria, because it is poverty that is creating this havoc of self-destruction. All of the crimes that is being committed to Nigeria by Nigerians is as a result of this poverty. And this have extended or expanded to other African states or countries where Nigerians infiltrate, because Nigerians have to travel. Number one, I would endorse anytime, any day Nigerians to travel, because only by exposure we can know what we are supposed to do for our own communities. So as a Nigerian, I have to speak first as a Nigerian. We have to individually think in the direction of how do we contribute? How do we contribute? Don't let us not hide because one or two of us have been able to get out or have some resources to alienate ourselves from the globe, from the masses, poor masses. Let's think of how do we lift Nigeria out of poverty. let's think of it. Let's leave the government to do whatever they like to do. As individuals, what can we build? Let's start thinking. Technology is here, right? I don't have the capacity. I have numbers of things I can do or could do. What have I started with? The little I have is a challenge. So think about it, brothers and sisters. Let's just find a way to get ourselves out of this thing. Because the only reason why a lot of Nigerians don't want to be in Nigeria today is because Nigeria is not safe to be in, to be able to walk and live. I remember one day having to discuss with a tech developing company, a tech company rather, in the US, and we were talking, and I pitched some ideas to them, and we came up with an idea to develop an app where we do trade by barter like we used to do. So if you are poor in Africa, whatever you have, you can just put in there, and someone would come in there and buy it from you with a certain amount, particularly. And this money will not be given to you. We're going to look at what you need and fund what you need. We have more than 600 million homes in Africa where they need to come out of poverty level. We needed to build this app so that people can, even within Africa itself, within Nigeria itself, you don't even know who to help, because sometimes people come in between as organization, NGOs, and all of this, and sometimes I see how some very good-hearted Nigerians go around lifting people out of very critical dying conditions. So I came up with trade by barter to just like, you can put a pin and someone will come with $1,000 to buy your pin. It's not a gift, it's buying to help you. And also we look at community roads, community market, housing, what do they call it? Grid power, which is solar. Look at these things, agricultural tools, and all of these things by communities. We're not talking about individual. I think a lot about things like that. Building trade by barter where in my village, for instance, we have some commodities, agro commodities that, for instance, I live in a different part of the world, and I can say, oh, I just want to I want to buy this product from you. It doesn't worth $1,000, but I want to buy it because the objective of trade by barter is to lift 600 million homes out of poverty in Africa and create development projects where there will be road construction. There are machines that can be donated, construction machines. There will be everything donated, gifted, to lift people out of the predicament of darkness, and there's power grids to be built by people just coming together and say, let's do this for our communities. Talking about solar energy and all of this. Just build a platform where you go there and you see hope. You see that things are transforming from where they used to be. Like a digital Africa, where if you go, you click, I'm in Nigeria, you go to Nigeria, there are very critical places. When you go there, you are going to see where there's red lines, where they need critical help, depending on what exactly is critical. Some places they can farm, they're not really poor, but what they need is road network and electricity. Then you help that community. You build the road. There are communities where they don't have farmland, they have water. You help them to sanitize the environment, help them with like the riverine area, people where their major industry is fishing and all of this water market and stuff like that. So we try to build that kind of infrastructure for them. You go to areas where it is agriculture, farming, and all of these things. You provide some tools and whatever they would need, majorly power and roads and housing. create it and find a way to build this. I think when I had this encounter with Akon when he was trying to light up Africa, I think the light something was supposed to be tied to that kind of idea. But as Africans, sometimes things get corrupted and they don't bring the value they were meant to bring. So how do we get people out of this predicament? Three major things is housing, electric power, and what do I call it? Road networks, housing, electricity, and road networks. These kind of things, and the rest can be supplementary and stuff like that. And then individuals empowerment and stuff like that. But focused on these things, because where there is no development, it's majorly because you cannot find your way to that village. There's no electricity and there's no housing, proper housing. These things are critical in Africa. In Nigeria, these things are critical. And I have other theory on how to digitalize Africa or digitalize Nigeria, where every human being has a fingerprint on the digital space, where they call it a database, right? Nigerians do not have a database. So if someone commits a crime, even if you take the person's picture, you cannot find the person. You can't. We're supposed to be an organization that will force the government to ensure that every Nigerian has a digital footprint. We cannot force the government to have a database, but we're going to force them to make sure every Nigerian who has a bank account, who has a telephone number, has a digital footprint. By force, mandate it, so that if you do that, if you do not have a bank account and you have an account, you must have a digital, DNA, where because if you take a criminal's picture, you can't do anything with it in Africa, in Nigeria. You can't, because there's no database. Because of the digital space where we are now, telephones have to be built with this digital mechanism, where everybody who uses a telephone, knowingly or unknowingly has a digital footprint. It's no longer going to, because we don't have an approach to have a national database where everybody has, a footprint or a DNA, where you just take somebody's fingerprint, or you can trace that person. So all these things were the things we wanted to embed in one single app, where, so these are the things, or one of the things that keeps me up at night, because I think a lot about Africa. I think a lot about Nigeria. What can I do? What can we do as a collective? These things have to bother you, have to bother everybody, African, because I want to live in my lifetime and live in Nigeria without fear, and enjoy Nigeria, enjoy Africa, without having to bother if there's a kidnapper looking at me.